Hey, I'm Dave Pryor. Welcome to the interviews that we're doing following the Global Agility and Innovation Summit. Nevine White is here and being very patient with me. Nevine, thank you for making time for this.
My pleasure, Dave.
I have now butchered Nevine's bio twice. So, Nevine, would you be kind enough to tell these people a little bit about your background in a more elegant way than I did?
Sure. I spent most of my career in high-tech telecom. 20 years of it was with one specific company called TW Telecom, where we did some very innovative finance things. And so my background really is, I started in engineering, it's really on the financial planning and analysis side, so very deep into budgeting, forecasting, analytics, that type of thing. And like I said, with my career at TW Telecom, where I led the FP&A function for 20 years, we did some very forward-thinking, agile business models that changes people. But back when we did this, it really wasn't an agile thing. It was really about solving business problems. And that's what I think agile in finance really looks like, is how do you solve those business problems?
Okay. So when I think about the financial aspect of most of this stuff, it seems like they're the people that get in the way of us solving the problems because we didn't tell them what we were going to do. And now they're coming around like, hey, what's up? And we're like, just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That seems to be like your mission is to fix that, right?
Yeah. Well, I think in the world of agile, and to me, being agile as a business is an imperative in the world that we live in today. The way technology is advancing, not just in high-tech companies, but really in all aspects of business and the workforce, the technical capabilities, the workforce, and the fact that it just no longer jives with ways of working the way they have been for the last century, right? And so finance, to a large extent, still operates on constructs and methodologies from literally 100 years ago. Doubled down on by things like Sarbanes-Oxley and things like, the accounting rules keep tightly on top of old rules. And so while it's a very, solid, hardly granite foundation, it really also is an anchor for companies. It doesn't allow them to respond to this very, very volatile marketplace that we have to operate in now. And so finance is often either self-excluding from these new modern concepts like agile. We're not asked to be participating. They're not given a seat at the table, if you will. And that's when companies struggle, because when they're being very nimble and agile on the operational, on the technical, on the marketing side, it doesn't translate to the back office functions. And so there's friction. Initiatives stall because they can't move forward because the slides aren't talking and things get stuck.
So I'm thinking about the idea of transparency. And I've worked at places where I've wanted to try to figure out how much it costs to do certain things. And the response from above has been, they're not paying attention. Don't call attention to it. If you ask, they'll start to look. And that was like the strategy for survival, which on one hand kind of makes sense. And on the other hand, seems really insane.
Yeah, well, it is. And I think that's part of it. I think at the end of the day, everybody really does want to accomplish the same thing. It's just that we're not speaking the same language, right? Finance has their version of it, and the technology operations side has their version of it. But at the end of the day, it is about the same things. And we all want visibility. We want the accurate data that goes with that. We all want to know about how quickly and how costly initiatives are, like the reporting of initiatives once they've been completed. And at the end of the day, we all want the business to succeed and grow. So everybody wants the same thing. It's just the angles at which we come at this from, and communicating across those silo walls is the part where these break down. And so, like I said, that's one of the cool things that we were able to do. We really did sit down with our technology folks, with our operation teams, in our version of agile, which again, we weren't calling it. Finance had a seat at the table. We were part of the, the scrum team, if you will. We were part of the conversation from the very beginning to the very end. And so by doing that, it created completely different dynamics in terms of how we were able to support the organization and doing things differently. We didn't have our IT organizations struggle with budgets while they were trying to do agile development. We were funding their teams, not their projects. And so it just created for a very different conversation.
So it's really interesting that you talked about supporting the organization there, because it's still in my head. It's like, and I guess it's the way a lot of people think about project management, that finance is the barrier. They're the blockers. They're the ones that are going to slow us down. Or if you're doing Starbucks or something like that, all those very theory X approaches to human interaction, where we have to put controls in place because people will do stupid things if we don't. But if we actually included you in the conversation from the very beginning, we could design something that would support things in a more healthy way. It's almost like, I have a sort of a strange question for you. If Agile is a response to the way we manage work, to fix the things that were designed in the early 1900s. You talked about how we're working with a lot of legacy financial systems. Has there been any kind of effort to develop an agile version of financial planning and analysis?
Yes. It's called Beyond Budgeting.
Okay.
And it actually started right about the time you were doing SCW. It came out of Europe. There were two gentlemen by the name of Jeremy Hope and Alvin Fraser who wrote the original book and published it in 2003.
Okay.
And it's a very principles-based management philosophy, and there's a lot of overlap with Agile.
Okay.
And so I think the issue with this, just as is with Agile, it takes a lot of actual human efforts to implement something like this, especially organizational-wide.
Yeah.
And so there are very forward-thinking companies who have adapted to this. It actually came out of researching some companies who had figured this out long before it had. Hey, they were trying to solve their own business problems. And so, but there is, that is certainly one philosophy. I mean, clearly it's been translated to other things. There's lean accounting, certainly agile finance is a concept that's being talked about. But I mean, to me, again, there isn't sort of a magic formula for this. You have to do the hard work and figure out how it fits into your culture, into your operational processes. It's not a copy paste. Even the things that we very successfully did at telecom, at the end of the day, it probably won't work in every company because culturally we were very different. The time and space we were operating in was very different. The industry was a little bit different. And so all these nuances have to be taken into consideration when you're implementing something like that.
Okay. Now, how does that all apply? I mean, everybody's sort of drunk with the possibility of AI right now and how that's going to affect the future. I mean, does that impact this at all? Are you able to leverage any of that technology, or does people's kind of swinging around madly trying to find the thing that's going to change the world? Does that affect anything?
I think to me, AI is I think it's super cool, and it's also overwhelming at the moment because, like you said, there are so many things out there that you can spend just hours a day getting sucked into and play with and learning about. I mean, to me, the coolest thing about this is similar to some of the benefits that we saw from eliminating a very traditional budgeting process is you create capacity for people by using this technology, by using these tools to really take some of the tedium out of the day-to-day work. You can create space and capacity for people to do the thinking work, right? To do sort of the really cool stuff that the AI can't do, or that that isn't intuitive and built into some kind of machine language. Where you really do still need the people to do certain things, but because you can use that technology to create space and time for all, now they have the capacity to do something different.
Okay. It's really interesting to me to hear you talk about it because it makes it sound like the whole financial aspect of it is enabling instead of disabling. This is how I've always thought of it.
It can be. And that's what you want people to take away from this. It's like, if you guys have on your side, life can be so much better because they start becoming an obstacle and they start becoming an ally. And how cool would that be?
Yeah. How often do you see that happening in like a PMO or a VMO? Is it becoming more included in that?
Again, I hope so. I haven't seen a lot of that. I mean, clearly from the very beginning, it was product management marketing that has been included in that. And to me, it feels like, we need to lean in on the other organizations that could potentially be partners in this rather than being obstacles in the path. That same thing, just have them be part of the team. And again, it doesn't mean you have to be there all the time or full time. Clearly, a finance person doesn't need to sit through a detailed discussion on coding or software development or something like that. But from your perspective of the overall program making progress, right, and being part of it, and not having to catch up or be contrarian or ask the question that's been answered without the time where everybody else sits there and rolls their eyes. I think it just makes a lot of sense to just have them be part of the whole process, part of the whole fun that's happening, because it also makes your finance people better. The more they know about the business, the better they are at analytics, at projections, at everything that they have to do. And that was one of the things that my team loved, because we really made those that you need to learn the products, you need to learn the technology, and the more they learn, the more they love their jobs, because they were they were thriving in that environment because they weren't just stuck doing random boring spreadsheets.
Well, with what you just said, I'm thinking that in that capacity, they can be spending time thinking about how they can help the people that are doing stuff, as opposed to how do they become like the money cops, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeping people from doing wrong things.
That they go to being business partners from being things like a budget police, or my team is usually called revenue prevention, which,
That's awesome. So the other thing that I'm thinking, which there's a part of my brain from me being younger that really wants to argue against this, but if I had metrics in place, if I had ways of understanding the financial impact, I would know more about what I could afford to spend, how I could spend it, what things just didn't make sense, which really bangs up against the like hand wavy, like, just trust me, I'll brute force it, it'll all work in the end. Which never works, but we all still like think that it will.
Great.
How do you pitch that to people that are very sort of I'm the new Steve Jobs kind of minded way?
Yeah. Well, amazing part of it is coming up with a structure that works in your organizational culture. I mean, the way we did it, we initially basically put the guardrails out there that said the decisions you make, you have to support with this idea that your goal is to do better. Your market, your region, your business unit, your function has to do better than you did last quarter. And so by doing that, we pushed everybody into this mindset of continuous improvement, right? And so it sort of when, and we didn't tell them you have to do like $1,000 better or 10% better. It's just do better. The idea being that if everybody does just a little bit better as a business, we're going to do a whole lot better. Right? Okay. And so that was the guardrail structure. And so, you did have metrics for some areas where it was difficult to sort of figure out the metrics. Well, it was as simple as your cost compared to our total revenue. If the company grew, you could spend a little more. If the company didn't grow, guess what? You need to figure out how to suck it up. But it was an all-in conversation. Everybody was looking at metrics and the results of them. And we put the finance team in place specifically to help leaders understand these metrics. Like, okay, if you're going to hire a person, look what this is doing to your metrics. Understand the impact and how much time you have, right? And so it was really managing the business from a different perspective. I mean, our leadership call it a fundamental change in how we're going to manage and evaluate our business. And that's exactly what it was. We started talking about our results and not our budget variances. And when you do that, it creates so much more space for people to not only breathe, but to actually do the job they were hired to do. And it just creates sort of the spiral of goodness all throughout the organization, because people ask themselves the hard questions. Like, why are we doing this? Is this the right time to do it? Is this the best way to spend our money? Should this hire be a salesperson, or should this hire be a programmer to make our sales and the tools better so that all our salespeople can be more productive, right? Or should this person be a trainer so that they can train more salespeople so they can make them more productive? Wow. What is the best place to put a resource? What is the timing for the resource, right? So there's all these much more productive conversations that happen than the standard of like, well, if it's not in the budget, I can't do it. Or if it's in the budget, I have to do it, even if it's no longer relevant, right? And you kind of default to this autopilot decision-making instead of truly leaning into being managers or leaders. And that's part of the downfall of all these old constructs. We've programmed management into being this sort of like, okay, I have this one decision point, like it's a budget. Yeah. Well, how far does that get you in the world today? With things are constantly changing. I mean, people don't think about this, but it's so obvious. There isn't a single budget that was created for the year 2020 that made it to the end of the year because of the pandemic, because nobody anticipated that. Nobody planned for that. So no single budget, no traditional budgets are had that event. But I would also argue that all the years before that, every year companies plan for like hundreds of projects to be done, and they budget all of them. And at the end of the year, they only are actually working on 3 of them anymore. Right. And they do that again every single year. Like there's a common sense component that's missing somewhere in there. Yeah, well, basically, that's the thing. There's a lot of common sense missing in that iteration. I mean, most companies, would be sure that most companies will basically have a ban on their budget by April, at least mentally, because they realize at that point it's completely outdated. And when you talk to business leaders, some of them say, like, well, time to eat this dry with paper. It's no longer worth anything. Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely a very short shelf life to a traditional budget. And this, because of the function of the world we live in, it moves too fast for something that was decided last August to still have validity. Okay, I got one more question, and this one's a big one. Company's going to make a change. You're going to start to adopt Agile. They're going to go through a giant transformation. That thing that's going to like hijack their entire everything. Should they incorporate the accounting change or the finance change in that large organizational shift, or should it be handled separately because it's just too much all? So I would advocate for yes. So I come from a revolutionary culture, and like, so burn it down. Pretty much.
Okay.
But that's the way to rebuild is just to raise and start over.
Okay.
That's, obviously that's a little bit of a draconian approach, and your culture has to be one of revolution if you're going to do that. If you don't have a revolutionary culture where you're willing to go there and truly lean into failing and learning and, organization-wide disruption-wide back, there are some prerequisites to doing it that way. Otherwise, it might be better to take a more evolutionary approach and do it, function by function. But I would say from the very beginning, everybody needs to know what's coming. Everybody needs to be part of the conversation. Everybody needs to start getting curious. Yeah. And then you engage them as you need to. But again, I came from a revolutionary culture. I mean, you made a decision to literally change from being budget to doing forecast in the space of about 6 months.
Wow.
And so it was, but that's who we were as a culture. I was able to do it because of who we were. That will work for everybody. You really have to do that hard work of asking yourself, who are we? Why are we doing this? What's the best way to change and to really lean into leading through that change, and how do you best bring everybody in your organization along with you. So it's about, figuring out who your stakeholders are, because when you do this kind of stuff, you're going to break things.
And people are going to be unhappy when the change starts.
Yeah. And so the more you embrace communication early on, the more you are going to not make that disruption be this thing where people either opt out or people resist, or it just it gets to a place where finance just raises every flag they have and go, we can't do this anymore because and a lot of it's just people not understanding. So I would strongly advocate make sure everybody's involved in the beginning, but then roll it out in a way that works in your culture and in your industry.
Awesome. This was great. I mean, this was probably the most interesting accounting related podcast interview I've ever had. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
What if people want to get in touch with you to learn more about this? What's the best way to do it?
Best way to find you on LinkedIn, Nevine. It's pretty straightforward. I'm right there.
This was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.